other side.
My name is Emily, and for 5 years, I poured my soul into VitaNet, an AI system I built from scratch at Vitaltech, a San Francisco startup that promised to redefine healthcare. VitaNet was more than code, it was my mission to save lives. It could analyze medical imaging with uncanny precision, catching lung cancers, heart defects, and neurological anomalies before they became crises. I'd spent countless nights in my tiny Mission District apartment, my laptop humming as I debugged algorithms, refined neural networks, and dreamed of a world where no patient was overlooked. But just weeks before VitaNet's market launch, my world shattered in a way I never anticipated. It started with an email from Claire, Vitaltech's CTO. I was at my desk, surrounded by empty coffee cups and post-it notes scribbled with equations. When the message arrived, Emily, we're restructuring the VitaNet team for the final phase. You'll be reassigned to a new project, effective immediately. The words felt like a betrayal. I was VitaNet's architect. I'd written its core algorithms, trained its models, and fixed every glitch. I'd sacrificed weekends, friendships, and sleep to make it work. Reassigned, I stormed into Claire's glass-walled office, my heart pounding. "What's going on?" I demanded. She stared at her monitor, avoiding my gaze. "It's a board decision," she said. Her voice clipped. "We need fresh leadership for the launch." Fresh leadership was Ethan Whitaker, the 23-year-old son of CEO Richard Whitaker. Ethan had graduated 6 months earlier with a business degree and no experience in AI or healthcare. When I pressed for answers, Claire shut me down. "It's done, Emily, move on, move on." VitaNet was my creation, my purpose. I'd seen it save lives in early trials. A 52-year-old teacher whose lung cancer was caught before it metastasized. A teenager whose heart murmur was flagged before it turned deadly. I'd built it to be reliable, ethical, and precise, testing every edge case to ensure it wouldn't fail. Now, it was being handed to someone who couldn't tell a neural network from a spreadsheet. I sat back at my desk, staring at the lines of code I'd written, my mind racing. I could quit, scream, or fight, but none of those felt right. I needed to be smart. That night, I backed up everything, every version of VitaNet's source code, every model checkpoint, every test result. I also saved blocks of recent changes to the code base, ones I hadn't authorized. They were sloppy, reckless, altered diagnostic thresholds, and tested tweaks to the algorithms. Someone was tampering with my work, and I suspected Ethan. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't storm out. I showed up the next day, did my new, meaningless tasks, writing documentation for a project I'd never touch, and let the office gossip spread. "Emily's burned out," they whispered in the break room. She couldn't handle the pressure. I let them believe it. I had a plan. Every night, in the dim glow of my laptop, I analyzed the data I'd saved. The unauthorized changes were worse than I'd feared. Whoever was making them had lowered the confidence thresholds for diagnoses, prioritizing speed over accuracy. It was a recipe for disaster: false positives that would scare patients, false negatives that could kill them. I needed an ally, someone who could expose this without putting me in the crosshairs. I reached out to Jules, a tech journalist I'd met at a hackathon 3 years earlier. Jules had a reputation for dismantling shady startups with her investigative pieces, and she owed me a favor after I'd helped her debug a data visualization tool for a story on crypto fraud. We met at a crowded cafe in Soma, where the hum of espresso machines drowned out our conversation. I slid her a USB drive with redacted logs, nothing that could be traced back to me. "Something's wrong at Vitaltech," I said. "I can't say more yet, but dig into it." Jules raised an eyebrow, her pierced lip curling into a smirk. "You're playing a dangerous game." I shrugged. "Just look." Meanwhile, VitaNet's beta testing began, with Ethan strutting around the office like he'd built the system himself. The first errors surfaced within days. A hospital in Oakland reported that VitaNet had flagged a healthy patient for a non-existent brain tumor. causing a week of panic before a second scan disproved it. Another trial site flagged a missed heart rhythm error that led to an emergency room visit. The errors were small but mounting, and I knew why. The tampered algorithms were overconfident, spitting out results without proper validation. I could have fixed it in a day. Instead, I built a sandbox environment, a virtual replica of VidaNet on my personal server. I fed it the same inputs as the live system and tracked every change Athens team made. I documented everything meticulously, staying within legal bounds. No hacking, no stolen credentials, just my backups and my brain. I didn't want my job back. Vitaltech had shown its true colors: nepotism over merit, profit over patience. Instead, I started building something new. In my spare time, I began developing VidaNet 2.0, a leaner, smarter version of the original. I stripped away the bloat, optimized the neural networks for efficiency, and added safeguards to prevent the kind of errors Athens team was making. It was slow work, done on a 5-year-old laptop that groaned under the load. But it felt like reclaiming my soul. Every line of code was a quiet rebellion, a refusal to let my work be destroyed. Word of my project spread through back channels. A group of former Vitaltech interns, fired months earlier for budget cuts, reached out on a private Discord server. They were a scrappy bunch, bitter, talented, and eager to prove themselves. There were 5 of us, me, Priya and Sam, 2 machine learning grads who'd been let go after building VidaNet's early data pipelines, Leo, a data scientist who'd been scapegoated for a failed pilot, and Tara, a UI designer whose mockups had been scrapped for Athens' clunky vision. We call ourselves the Net Coders, a nod to the late-night sessions we held over encrypted video calls. Priya optimized the training pipeline, cutting runtime by 30%. Sam debugged the inference engine, making it twice as robust. Leo cleaned the datasets, weeding out biases that had crept into Vitaltech's trials. Tara designed a user interface so intuitive it felt like an extension of the doctor's mind. We worked in secret, pooling our skills to build something better than Vitaltech could ever imagine. It wasn't about revenge, it was about redemption. Then came the leak. A video surfaced on Reddit, posted by an anonymous account. It was grainy, filmed on a phone in a hospital trial site, showing a staffer panicking as VidaNet misdiagnosed a stroke as a migraine. The patient was stable, but the error could have been fatal. The post exploded, racking up 10,000 upvotes in hours. Commenters demanded answers. Is this what Vitaltech calls revolutionary? Who's running this clown show? Vitaltech's PR team issued a boilerplate statement about ongoing improvements. But the damage was done. Jules called me the next day, her voice electric. You see Reddit? She asked. I played dumb. What's up? She laughed. You're too good at this. I'm digging deeper. Stay tuned. Richard Whitaker, the CEO, held a press conference a week later, standing in front of Vitaltech's sleek logo with his trademark grin. These are minor glitches, he said, tossing out buzzwords like iterative process and scaling innovation. He promised a swift fix and deflected questions about Athens' role, calling him a visionary leader. But hours after the conference, another leak hit Exotrove of internal emails, including one I'd sent 2 months before my reassignment. In it, I'd warned Claire about the risks of rushing VidaNet to market without proper validation. The diagnostic thresholds need at least 3 more rounds of testing. I'd written, premature deployment could lead to errors with serious consequences. The email was marked read, but never answered. The internet erupted. Vitaltech New trended for 3 days, shared by tech influencers, healthcare advocates, and furious patients. The company's stock plummeted 30% overnight. Jules's article dropped a week later. A 5,000-word bombshell published in Wired, titled The Woman They Sidelined, and How She Saved Lives by Staying Silent. It was a masterpiece meticulously sourced, weaving together the Reddit leak, the internal emails, and interviews with unnamed insiders. She didn't mention my name, per my request, but the story was clear. A lead researcher had been pushed out, her warnings ignored, and now patients were paying the price. The article went viral, racking up millions of views and sparking debates on X, Reddit, and LinkedIn. Vitaltech's investors pulled funding, and hospitals paused their contracts. Richard's grin vanished from press photos. I stayed out of the spotlight. I didn't need the attention, I needed the work to speak for itself. My old team, though, started getting calls. Headhunters from Google, Microsoft, and smaller AI firms reached out. Impressed by the code samples we'd open-sourced under pseudonyms, VidaNet 2.0 was still under wraps, but our reputation was growing. Then came the patent. I'd quietly registered VidaNet enhanced under M Innovations, a Delaware LLC I'd set up with help from a lawyer friend. The patent was vague enough to avoid legal challenges from Vitaltech, but specific enough to stake my claim. It was a declaration. I wasn't done. Richard was summoned to a congressional hearing on healthcare AI ethics, grilled by senators about falsified credentials, suppressed warnings, and patient safety. Ethan vanished from the public eye. His LinkedIn profile went dormant. His X account deleted. Rumors swirled he'd fled to London. Tail between his legs, Vitaltech Board launched an internal audit, and whispers of a federal investigation into intellectual property theft began to circulate. I didn't gloat. I kept coding, kept building. For months after I left Vitaltech, I got an email from the organizers of a TEDx event in San Francisco. The theme was silent strength. They'd read Jules's article and wanted me to speak. I hesitated. Public speaking made my stomach churn, but the night coders convinced me. You've earned this. Tara said, tell the world what silence can do. I stepped onto the stage in a simple black dress, my hair pulled back, no notes in hand. The auditorium was packed, the lights blinding. I took a breath and began. Silence isn't weakness, I said. It's a strategy. When you have the truth, you don't need to shout. You build, you wait, and you win. I didn't mention Vitaltech, but the audience knew. The applause shook the room, and for the first time in months, I felt seen not as a victim, but as a victor. A week later, I got a call from a federal task force on AI safety. They wanted me as a consultant to shape regulations for healthcare. I accepted, not for the title, but because it meant protecting patients from the kind of recklessness I'd seen at Vitaltech. One afternoon, I visited a hospital where VidaNet's early prototype had been tested. A woman approached me in the lobby, her eyes bright with recognition. She was a breast cancer survivor, diagnosed early because of my original model. Thank you, she said, her voice trembling. You saved my life. I nodded, my throat tight to speak. That moment was worth more than any vindication. Back in my apartment, I opened my laptop to an email from a venture capital firm. We're prepared to invest $8 million in M Innovations. It read, we believe in your vision. I leaned back, a smile tugging at my lips. I didn't need to destroy Vitaltech. I didn't need to prove myself to anyone. I just needed to build something better, something that worked, something that saved lives. The night coders and I moved into a small office in Oakland, funded by the VC investment. VidaNet 2.0 became VidaNova, a system that outperformed its predecessor in every metric: faster, more accurate, and ethically sound. Hospitals across the country signed on for trials, and early results were staggering. 98% accuracy in detecting early-stage cancers, 95% in predicting cardiac risks. We open-sourced parts of the codebase, inviting contributions from developers worldwide. The community grew, and so did our impact. VidaNova wasn't just a product, it was a movement. I didn't look back at Vitaltech. I didn't check their stock price or read their desperate press releases. I didn't need to. The future was ours, built on the truth I'd carried in silence. As I sat in our new office, watching Priya and Sam debug a new feature while Tara sketched a dashboard, I realized something. I hadn't just built a better AI. I'd built a better life, one where my work mattered, where my team was my family, and where patients, not profits, came first. That was my victory. And it was enough.